Hi all, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today I continue answering your questions with the second part of our Q&A. I've really enjoyed reading your questions and coming up with my answers to them, so I think it's something I'll definitely do again in the future. Maybe every few months or so, we'll see how it goes. But that said, let's jump straight in with question number 1. Which Primark do you think has the most tragic story? Lorgar, Kurz, Sanguinius? In my opinion, it's Alfarius. He wanted to do what's best, maybe not for humanity, but for the galaxy. He thought of destroying chaos as the Emperor's end goal. The sad thing was with his death, as he was trying to explain himself to his brother. But even if Rogel or any other Primark would have listened, no one would or could believe the freaking Primark of the Alpha Legion. Yeah, that's a very good point. Even if Dawn had agreed to listen, he would never have believed Alfarius. And quite a lot of that would be due to his reputation. He's a victim of his own actions here. For me, the most emotional story is Sanguinius. He knew by facing Horus he would die, but he did it gladly with his loyalty to his father the Emperor and the Imperium. The most tragic, I think, would have to go to Magnus. His heart was in the right place when he tried to warn the Emperor. It was just his arrogance that blinded him. He never wanted to turn against the Emperor. Circumstances were just twisted that pushed him there. Now in the 40k timeline, he's written as very much as the moustache twirling villain, but originally, circumstances forced Magnus to be a traitor rather than his heart putting him there. Next one. Primarks are pretty amazing. Yes, they are. How many Space Marines would it take to beat a Primark in combat? And what weapons would actually be able to hurt a Primark? Well, look, any weapon that can hurt a Space Marine can technically hurt a Primark as well. It's just that a Primark can absorb and shrug off a lot more damage than the Space Marines. An unarmed Rabute Guilliman, for example, nearly dies to a handful of Alpha Legion Marines. So it can happen. It more comes down to how lethal the Primarks are. For example, 5 Marines armed with bolters could kill a Primark. If he were to just stand there in front of them frozen whilst they poured him full of bolt rounds, then yeah, he's going to die. The reason it doesn't happen is because the Primark would kill the Marines before they've even had a chance to start shooting. Next one. Why is Khan of the World Eaters called the Betrayer? And what did Sevatar of the Night Lords do to get the Red Hand's death sentence? Your approach to 40k is superb, so I'd love to hear your take on these. I've been wondering for so long. Thanks. Well, thank you for the kind words. Okay, look, the reason Khan is called the Betrayer takes place during a battle between the Emperor's children and obviously the World Eaters, his own legion. During the course of this battle, the World Eaters they're closing in on victory, but their final attack just kind of stops, it stalls. And Khan, at this point, he just completely loses it. He goes mad with the apparent weakness and incompetence of his fellow Marines, and he just starts to slaughter his own brethren, thus betraying his own legion, hence the moniker the Betrayer. As for Sevatar, I don't know. My only current readings of Sevatar are from the Framus Crusade Dark Angels books and the Unremembered Empire series, which unless I'm very much mistaken, it doesn't tell you what he's done. He is questioned on it. He's questioned on it by 2 Dark Angels, and he just replies, "I'm both a traitor and a fool." So we don't actually know what it is he's done. It may be said elsewhere in the series, and I haven't read that novel yet. If that is the case, then somebody please tell me. I'll definitely check that novel out soon. But yeah, myself, I don't currently know. I am actually growing more and more fond of the Night Lords, however. As I've mentioned before, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the Conrad Kurz Primark novel when it's released, standard release in a couple of months. The artwork of that novel really captures the spirit of the Night Haunter and his legion. Just absolutely nails them perfectly to me. Next question. Who do you think will be the next Primark to return? The next Primark to return will be Demon Primarch Fulgrim, followed by Lion L. Johnson. That's my prediction. Does the lore hint at what is outside our galaxy? Has mankind had not expanded beyond it? Okay, so as far as I understand it, there are still reaches of our own galaxy outside the Imperium, due to it being beyond the Astronomicon, which means it's very difficult for Imperial forces to reach safely. Beyond the galaxy itself, however, well, it would be very much like our own universe. A void of space and a billion other galaxies after that. Let's not forget the Tyranids have only just setting their eyes upon our galaxy, having harvested an untold amount beforehand. So we could be the last life-filled galaxy left. The Tyranids could have already mown through all the others. We just don't know. What is the most impressive feat of the Emperor? I guess this is down to your own independent views. I was initially going to say the creation of the Primarks, but actually, when I thought about it, it has to be holding back the forces of chaos and denying the gods their ultimate victory for the 10,000 years he's been upon the Golden Throne. Every second of every day, fighting against the Chaos Gods and their kin for 10,000 years. The ultimate sacrifice for the sake of mankind. The Emperor truly protects. Would the Emperor returning break completely the balance of powers in the Warhammer universe? In my opinion, no. As I said in a previous Q&A, GW could write whatever they wish to balance it out. However, I doubt he will ever return physically, because then it'd have to be the start of the Second Great Crusade, which I'd love, I'm not going to deny, but it's no longer the grim dark setting that makes 40k what it is. So it's enough knowing we have him starting to make his presence known, at least psychically, once more across the galaxy. Could you do a video on the Mechanicus or Titans? Praise be to the Machine God and the Omnissiah. Absolutely. Absolutely. No questions about that. No debates. Next one. I've always wondered how the Astronomicon can be attracting the Tyranids from outside the galaxy when we know that it doesn't even reach the far side of the galaxy itself. The eastern fringe is outside its range. I know it was the Pharos that overloaded and initially sent out a one-off pulse during the heresy, but we're told that the Astronomicon contributes to the Tyranids' advance towards our galaxy. Yeah, so you're right here. It initially causes the Tyranids' attention to be drawn. This is obviously a retconning of sorts, as we've always been told, as you said, originally it was the Astronomicon. But think of Pharos as the flash of light that caught their attention. Once they got closer, they saw something even more appealing. It's like, seeing a McDonald's billboard while you're driving. That's what gets your attention. But then when you get a bit further down the road, you see that bright McDonald's sign. Terror to the Tyranids literally just became McDonald's. Probably doesn't say it quite like that in the lore, but you get my point. Which Legion was the best in Legion versus Legion fighting? Was Russ and the Wolves really the best candidate for being the Emperor's executioner and attack dogs? Could another Legion have done this role as well or better? There will never be a concrete answer for this one, as it would cause too much fan rage, quite simply. Everyone has their own favoured legions. I think of the legions like a game of rock, paper, scissors. Some would perform better against others and worse against others. The Primarks and the legions were created to perform specific roles when working together, to complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. And it would work the same when fighting against each other as well. You're just exposing the weaknesses instead. Was Russ and the Wolves the best candidate? Well, the Emperor certainly thought so. But look, we know I'm a massive fan of Russ. The reason I would say he is the executioner is because there is so much more to him than the mindless savage he is portrayed as. It's shown several times he wears it like a mask. He is intelligent and calculating. Few Primarchs have benefited as much from the Horus Heresy series as Russ, in my opinion. It's given this savage warrior king a much richer and deeper character. and his loyalty to the Emperor is without question by the Emperor himself. And that's what you need in someone you're asking to perform such a task. They won't mindlessly do it. They understand the ramifications of what you're asking, and they put due thought and consideration into the task at hand. Could other Primarchs perform the role? Of course they could. Lionel Johnson immediately springs to mind, although I don't see him ever debating or agonising over a needed execution. I think if it was decreed, he'd do it with no hesitation or debate. But the question is that the best way to do it? Personally, I don't think that is always the best policy. You should always be putting thought into whatever task it is that you've been assigned. The same goes for Kurz, for example. Sure, he could be a fantastic executioner, but would he reason as to why he's performing the task at hand? Then you have others, such as Sanguinius or Vulcan. I imagine they would not relish such a role, and possibly actively argue against such a task. But that's the beauty of each Primarch. Each was born for their own role. Next question. What are your thoughts on the Death Corps? And do you ever plan on doing lore videos? Well, who doesn't love them? They have a great lore, that's for sure. They aren't my favourite Astra Militarum regiment though. Catachan has my heart there. And will I ever do lore videos? Well, don't I already? But no, I know what you mean. Will I ever do straight up reading of the lore? I doubt it, as there's already more than enough people who do that already. I will definitely do lore videos in the sense of why I love this faction, or etc. What makes them great, or perhaps what's wrong with them, how I would change them. Lore with my own thoughts and opinions on things, and then you guys giving your thoughts and opinions too. I think that's why this channel works as well as it does, and why it's slightly different to other channels out there. Next one. Greetings, Wolf Lord. I was wondering if there were any information on the pact that the Emperor made with the Ruinous Powers, and if you would do a more in-depth vid on it in the future. Okay, I know of no such pact, and any such discussion around such a pact, should it exist, is definitely classified as heresy. Should such a video be uploaded in the future, well, I can neither confirm or deny. I'm sure it would be swiftly redacted. No, look, of course I'll do a video on that in the future. That is a very interesting topic, whether you disagree strongly with it or you really like it. That is definitely a fantastic talking point in the lore. Can you make a tier list of all the legions, from your favourite to your most hated? Oh, you know how hard that would be? I mean, we're talking just 30k, right? So, okay, I'll make that a video soon for a bit of fun. But yeah, as I've said numerous times, my lists change virtually from week to week. Next one. If you could change one thing about all of the Primarchs to make their upbringings even worse, what would you change? Well, even worse. Man, you're harsh. Each individually would take a lot of time and thought, but something that I think would have a profound effect for the negative is if there was no Malcador. Malcador often played the beloved uncle role to many of the Primarchs. He had the conversations that the Emperor didn't, and regardless of your opinion on the Emperor's feelings to the Primarchs, there's no debating Malcador genuinely does care for them. So it would be interesting to see how events transpired if he wasn't in the picture. Also, what battles of the Indomitus Crusade would you like to see short stories from? I would like to see a lot more around the formation of the new chapters, how the new founding chapters feel when they leave the Crusade to found new homeworlds, how they adapt and integrate to that new world with the people that may already be on the world, how the chapter master is established, how their first contact with their founding chapter goes. You know, things like that, the things that we don't get to see rather than the standard battle books that we get all the time. Next one. If you were a Perpetual and could choose your life in the 40k universe, what would it be? Wow, another tough question. There's not many nice places to live in the 40k universe when you think about it. It is the grim dark after all. Fantasy wise, look, you can imagine being a ganger in the underhive of Necromunda. I would love the whole setting of that. Or a Catachan jungle fighter. But in reality, they're not nice places to be living. Even Terra is a harsh place to live unless you're one of the few lucky privileged. You want to be somewhere relatively nice, like one of the realms in Ultramar, for example. But this is 40k we're talking about, so obviously I'd be Wolf Lord Rho, Wolf Lord of a new founding Space Wolf successor chapter. And if I was not lucky enough to be chosen for that, well, then I'd have to be a Catachan jungle fighter. Question: can you do a video on how the Primarchs felt for their father, who hated/loved the Emperor? Yeah, that's an absolutely great idea. I'll definitely try and do that. Take a bit more research to make sure I'm getting the right input on the right Primarchs, but yeah, definitely good idea. Will you go over any of the Unification Law or Outcast of the Dead? Absolutely, my friend. Too many ideas, too little time, but yes, absolutely we'll get round to it. Nice to see this channel getting some attention, as I love your vids, and my question is, can you talk about future projects, as I'd like to know what to expect. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much for the kind words. Future projects, well, of course the heartbeat of this channel will always be the lore, so you can always expect more lore going forward, because I just love talking about it. I've covered Lionel Johnson arriving on Macragge in Lion Week, so we're definitely continuing that arc. There's a lot more interaction with his brother Gilliman that happens on Macragge that we definitely need to cover, so that will be coming up very soon. Some much requested Magnus the Red videos and the Ferrus Manus videos. As you guys know, I've recently got the Primark books for them. Really enjoying reading those thus far, so I'm going to be focusing on those two Primarks coming up soon as well. And also, look, plenty more current 40k videos, such as how did the High Lords of Terror react to the returned Gilliman, the Custodes, and on top of those, I have plans for more videos aside from the lore, such as Q&As like this one, news, thoughts, discussions, showing my models, behind the scenes, and any suggestions you guys ask for. I really want to get the channel to a point where I can talk 40k with you all every day, and the more we have to talk about, the better. But as I said, the heartbeat of this channel will always be lore talk, especially as I'm such a Primark fanboy. Serious question: I don't have the money to buy all the Horus Heresy book series. Do they work as standalone stories? Okay, short answer is yes. Look, you're not alone. I don't have every single Horus Heresy novel myself either. It is a lot of money and we don't all have it. So yes, you can absolutely read particular novels that you're interested in. You just have to be aware that they are part of the larger ongoing story. There are some where it absolutely helps if you've read the previous installment, no doubt, but you do not have to purchase every single novel. My advice is to read the synopsis before you purchase. That will give you some insight as to where it lies in the overall story. Next question. My question is, what do you think happened to the Primarch of the White Scars Legion? Was he captured or lost in the webway? Well, who knows where GW wants to take the Khan? Personally, I don't see the Khan ever being captured. I think he's still fighting away in the webway somewhere. We know time functions differently in different places in the universe, so I'd love it if the Khan re-emerged after only being gone for what felt like a few hours or days to him, re-emerging into the Imperium completely different to the one he left. The White Scars are actually searching for their beloved Primarch in the webway as we speak. Imagine his surprise seeing these new Marines approaching him in the webway. One thing is for certain, the Great Khan will return, and I can't wait for it. Is Lorgar still in chastity? Also, do Primarchs have all the same organs as Space Marines, such as 2 hearts? Okay, so Lorgar was last seen fleeing from his brother Korax in the Eye of Terror. What has he been up to since? Well, who knows? But I hope we get a follow-up to that teaser soon, because that was a really interesting story. And as for the Primarchs, I covered it a bit in the previous Q&A. No, Primarchs are very different to their sons. Only the Emperor and Malkador know what truly makes up the Primarchs. Who is your favourite loyalist Primarch, and why is it Leman Russ? Well, look, great question. As I've spoken about, I love all the Primarchs, especially the loyalist ones, yes. I love Leman Russ because he's become so much more than the mindless savage he was portrayed as. He's now a ferocious, thoughtful, intellectual, even caring warrior king who wears his savagery as a mask to fool his opponents. His ferocity is legendary, but he never lets it completely overwhelm him like Angron. He uses it as a weapon, always aware of the wider picture of the battle around him. I love that the Emperor would never question his loyalty, and that we've seen the human side to him. He cares for his brothers. Even in the heat of a duel with Horus, it's his human love for his brother that prevents him from delivering the killing blow. Is he perfect? No, of course not. His temper often drags him into fights he has no need to be in. But as quickly as he loses his temper, he just as quickly laughs about it. And I can identify with that a lot. You know, that is why I like Leman Russ. Do you have a favourite Imperial Guard regiment? And if so, what is it and why? Well, again, I like most of the Imperial Guard regiments, but it's Catachan Jungle Fighters for me. I love the look. You know, it's screaming Rambo and Arnie from Predator. That's my aesthetic. I'm a natural born Catachan. Next one. Do more lore videos on the first meetings of the Primarchs, or your speculations on the future of 40k? Yeah, look, I love covering the interactions of the Primarch, so you can rest assured there will, as long as we get Primarch content, there will always be more about them. And there will always be more to speculate about in 40k, so look, no worries for either of those there. Does the Astronomicon produce light? If so, can it be reflected to other planets, thereby protecting them the same as Terra? Well, no, it's psychic. So it only exists in the immaterium, the warp. It is described as a sensation of silvery light and chorus of many heavenly voices. As such, I don't think it could be reflected anywhere. The Emperor himself is all that guides it, directing it across the Imperium to enable mankind to traverse the warp. Without that, there's basically no real space travel. Next one. Do the Night of the Wolf, Space Wolves versus World Eaters? Of course. How could you think I would not do that? That is definitely on the cards. Next one. Which Primarch do you identify with most as a person? Ooh, wow, that's a good question. I feel there are aspects of many Primarchs I can identify with. As I said earlier, I can identify with Russ's quick to anger, quick to laugh aspect of his personality. I can identify a lot with Lionel Johnson. I'm not the emo part that everyone goes on about, but look, I'm not naturally a talker. I really don't do polite conversation, so I often come across as very quiet, uninterested and reserved. It's not intentional, that's just me. I've always put other people's interests in front of my own, which is very much like Sanguinius and Vulcan's personalities. You know, and then like Gilliman, if I'm at work, I will always go above and beyond to get the job done, because I feel that's my duty. And I've certainly got the impatience of Ferrus Manus, so yeah, there's lots of aspects of the Primarchs that I can relate to, which is why I think they make such great characters. Next one. Are there novels which follow Sanguinius primarily? Yeah, if you're interested in Sanguinius, the best place to start is Fear to Tread. Definitely the #1 starting place for Sanguinius action. Next novel? Next question. Another question. Imperial Fists or Dark Angels, and why? Okay. I'm afraid for the Dark Angels haters out there, I'm going to have to say Dark Angels. Why? Well, I love the colour scheme, the dark green with the bone. I don't do the red weapon casings, not a big fan of that look, so I always change it to bone. I'm a big fan of Lionel Johnson, but there is a big disclaimer in this fact that I am really not a fan of how the Dark Angels are being portrayed lately in the current lore. You know, they're very close to the moustache twirling villains, and it feels like it's going a bit too far. To be honest, it feels a bit like bad writing. Hopefully the line returns and the nonsense gets ended. I'd never really been an Imperial Fists fan until Praetorian of Dawn. That made me a huge Rogel Dawn fan, as I think you can tell in my videos about it. I never realised Dawn was such a badass, and God, I loved that fight with Alfarius. So good, so good. So Imperial Fists have very much rounded out my love for all the founding legions, and they've definitely come up in my standings a lot. As I posted not long ago, I do have the Imperial Fist Supremacy Force box set. Tempting to maybe just stick with fists for that and get a force of Imperial Fists up too, but a little bit more thought is needed on that one. Decisions. Next question. What's your favourite Astra Militarum force and named character? Well, you mean the legend that is Sly Marbo, right? One man army. That's all I got to say about that. Finally, what's your favourite Xenos faction? This can change at times, but generally I'll say Tyranids. Next one. Is the Emperor going to die on the throne? No. If the Emperor dies, the Imperium dies with him. Next one. What are your thoughts on the 7th and 19th Legions? Do you like them, hate them, or are you neutral on them? If so, may I ask the reason for your answer? Okay, so 7th and 19th, Imperial Fists and Raven Guard. Okay, as I stated before, I was never a big Imperial Fist fan originally. They just seemed like yellow Ultramarines to me when I was growing up, if I'm honest. But as I said, Rogel Dawn has changed that a great deal. I would definitely like to get more tabletop characters for them though. And as I've said before, the rest of the founding legions, they really don't have enough proper characters represented on the tabletop. They really need more, at least their chapter master. I also really like the Crimson Fist colour scheme. That's really nice. As I've said, I would definitely more favourable towards the Imperial Fist and will be getting a force of them at some point. As for the Raven Guard, I'm a big fan. They have an awesome look, fantastic background. I love the specialism in the assault pack troops, etc. Not a big fan of the Vanguard Primaris, but I think they would fit the Raven Guard pretty well. And also, how can you not love Korax? He's an absolute badass. Definitely need to do some videos on him soon. Okay, big thank you for all the questions, everyone. Really enjoyed reading them, really enjoyed thinking of my answers for them. Feel free to drop any questions for future Q&As in the comments. I'll always try and keep track of them, take them down. As always, a huge thank you to all of my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me and I really appreciate it. If you're new, please consider subscribing to join the community and help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am now off and I'll see you guys again real soon.